Contemporary society is a society of movement. Our media technologies both produce and reflect a desire for mobility. Mobility is just simply the movement of people, and this notion of mobility has become embodied within our technologies today.
For example, the new app Pokemon.
However, mobile technologies have only risen over the last decade, and it is continuously developing.
In the 19th century, or what we best know it as, the Victorian era, as you can see, was a time of no mobile technology. With these new mobile devices, there has emerged a new genre of the age of the ubiquitous mobile photography, which is commonly referred to as selfies.
The closest thing to a selfie in that era was the wealthy portraits that only the wealthy could afford. In contemporary society, we live in the age of the selfie.
People take photos of themselves on their mobile device and upload it to any social media for the world to see within seconds.
So this calls to question the juxtaposition of the two eras, the Victorian era and the 20th century, and how the 20th century is the century of speed. It also raises the question of how the century of speed is influenced by these mobile technologies and how they have changed the way we live our lives today. Let's now chuck it back to the Victorian era and see what photography was like back in that time.
In 1839, a new means of visual representation was announced to a startled world: photography. And since then, just about everything has been photographed, or so it seems. So we have this juxtaposition of wealthy portraits in the Victorian era and portraits in the 21st century. As you can see in the Victorian era, these people wore neck braces and it purely just looks absurd. They wore these neck braces while waiting for the camera to find the light, and I guess in contrast to the 21st century, we now simply take a quick selfie or photo on our mobile device. So a product of photography was the relative extreme slowness of the camera in contrast to the fastness of photography in the 21st century, or as I call it, the century of speed. Susan Sontag states that for the first time in history, large numbers of people are regularly travelling out of their environments for short periods of time. This also relates to how the notion of mobility is being embodied within our technologies. Jerry Saltz states that we live in the age of the selfie. Selfies have their own structural autonomy. This new genre isn't dominated by artists like it was in the Victorian era. The first selfie was Parmigiano's self-portrait in a convex mirror in 1523, and this itself just shows the evolution of the selfie. Critique Alicia Ella notes that we're becoming our own biggest fans and private paparazzi. We now have so many social media network apps such as Snapchat, Instagram and Facebook that is making this available. However, something that these critics don't theorise on is the disruption of these mobile technologies are having on society and how mobility is becoming embedded into the technologies. It's changed our relationship with space. We're now free to work outside, check the bus timetable on our phones, get a message to someone through multiple social media networks and have it delivered in seconds. These technologies have influenced our mobility and are taking over the way we mobilise in today's society from the Victorian era to the 21st century.